Hello everyone, welcome to the 140 Literary and Jury Charge. Today we're going to start off with a summary of the life of Martin Luther King Jr. Here we go, ready? Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 and died on April 4th, 1968. He was an American pastor, activist, humanitarian, and leader in the African American civil rights movement. He is best known for his role in the advancement of civil rights using nonviolent civil disobedience based on his Christian beliefs. Born Michael King, his father changed his name in honor of German reformer Martin Luther. A Baptist minister, King became a civil rights activist early in his career. He led the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott and helped found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC, in 1957, serving as its first president. With the SCLC, King led an unsuccessful struggle against segregation in Albany, Georgia, in 1962, and organized nonviolent protest in Birmingham, Alabama, that attracted national attention following television news coverage of the brutal police response. King also helped to organize the 1963 March on Washington, where he delivered his I Have a Dream speech. There, he established his reputation as one of the greatest orators in American history. On October 4, 1964, King received the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality through nonviolence. In 1965, he and the SCLC helped to organize the Selma to Montgomery marches, and the following year he took the movement north to Chicago. In the final years of his life, King expanded his focus to include poverty and the Vietnam War. In 1968, King was planning a national occupation of Washington, D.C. to be called the Poor People's Campaign when he was assassinated by James Earl Ray on April 4 in Memphis, Tennessee. His death was followed by riots in many U.S. cities. King was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Medal posthumously. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was established as a U.S. federal holiday in 1986. Hundreds of streets and a county in the U.S. have been renamed in his honor. A memorial statue on the National Mall was opened to the public in 2011. March on Washington, 1963, I Have a Dream. King, representing the SCLC, otherwise known as Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was among the leaders of the so-called Big Six civil rights organizations who were instrumental in the organization of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, which took place on August 28, 1963. King is most famous for his I Have a Dream speech given in front of the Lincoln Memorial during the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The march originally was conceived as an event to dramatize the desperate condition of blacks in the southern U.S. and an opportunity to place organizers' concerns and grievances squarely before the seat of power in the nation's capital. Organizers intended to denounce the federal government for its failure to safeguard the civil rights and physical safety of civil rights workers and blacks. However, the group acquiesced to presidential pressure and influence, and the event ultimately took on a far less strident tone. The march did, however, make specific demands: an end to racial segregation in public schools, meaningful civil rights legislation, including a law prohibiting racial discrimination in employment, protection of civil rights workers from police brutality, a $2 minimum wage for all workers, and self-government for Washington, D.C., then governed by congressional committee. Despite tensions, the march was a resounding success. More than 250,000 people of diverse ethnicities attended the event, sprawling from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial onto the National Mall and around the reflecting pool. At the time, it was the largest gathering of protesters in Washington, D.C.'s history. King delivered a 17-minute speech, later known as "I Have a Dream." In the speech's most famous passage, in which he departed from his prepared text, possibly at the prompting of Mahalia Jackson, who shouted behind him, "Tell them about the dream." King said, "I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream came to be regarded as one of the finest speeches in the history of oratory. The march, and especially King's speech, helped put civil rights at the top of the agenda of reformers in the United States and facilitated passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The original typewritten copy of the speech, including Dr. King's handwritten notes on it, was discovered in 1984 to be in the hands of George Raveling, the first African American basketball coach of the University of Iowa. In 1963, Raveling, then 26, was standing near the podium and immediately after the oration impulsively asked King if he could have his copy of the speech. So he got it. And there's more to that, but we'll stop there. Okay, I'm going to give you The deposition instructors to the witness. Here we go. Ready? This proceeding is known as a deposition. The person transcribing the proceeding is a certified shorthand reporter and has placed you under oath. During the course of this proceeding, I, and perhaps other of the counsel present here today, will be asking you questions pertaining to this lawsuit. Although this proceeding is being held in my office in an informal atmosphere, since you have been placed under oath, your testimony here today has the same force and effect and is subject to the same penalties as if you were testifying in a courtroom before a judge. Specifically, you are subject to the penalty of perjury. Perjury is defined as willfully and contrary to an oath administered, stating as true any material fact which one knows to be false. The penalty of perjury may be imprisonment for not less than 1 year, nor more than 14 years. You are advised that an unqualified statement of that which you do not know to be true is equivalent to a statement of that which you know to be false. If at any time during the deposition you feel that any question is ambiguous or unintelligible, or that you are unable to understand it, or you fail to hear the questions for any reason whatsoever, please tell the person asking you the question. If you do not so indicate, it will be presumed that you have heard and have understood each question, and that your answer to each question is based upon your complete and full understanding thereof. If, after a question has been posed to you, you have any question yourself relating to what has been inquired about, please tell the person who posed that question before you, please tell the person who posed the question before you answer his question. The reporter is only able to transcribe audible responses, so please do not nod your head, shake your head, or say uh-huh or huh-uh. Further, the reporter can usually record the words of only one person speaking at a time, so please allow time for the question to be completed before you respond. You will normally be allowed to finish each and every answer before a new question is posed. At the conclusion of this deposition, the reporter will transcribe these proceedings into a booklet form, and you will have an opportunity to read that booklet and make any changes in your testimony that you feel are necessary. However, if you do make changes in your testimony, as it is given here today, I will be entitled to ask you why you made such changes and comment upon those changes before a judge or jury at the trial of this action. Because of that fact, it is important that all of your answers be full, complete, and correct. If I ask you about any questions, conversations you have had in the past, and you are unable to recall the exact words used in the conversation, you may state that you are unable to recall those exact words, and then you may give me the gist or substance of any such conversation to the best of your recollection. If you recall only part of a conversation or only part of an event, you are requested to give me your best recollection of those events or parts of conversation that you recall. If I ask you whether you have any information upon a particular subject, and you have overheard other persons conversing with each other regarding it, or have seen correspondence or documentation regarding it, please tell me that you do have such information and indicate the source, either a conversation or documentation or otherwise, from which you derive such knowledge. In answering, please do not be concerned with whether or not your answer is hearsay, or concern yourself with any technical rules of evidence you think may preclude answering. Our purpose here today is not to trap you or to trick you in any manner, but simply to ascertain and discover that information about the facts concerning this lawsuit that you have within your knowledge. At the conclusion of this deposition, the attorneys present may, by agreement, stipulate that you read, sign the booklet containing your testimony from the reporter who is here today, taking and transcribing this deposition. If we do so agree, it will be upon the expressed understanding and your promise that you will, upon receipt of this deposition, promptly and as quickly as possible, read it, correct it if you feel necessary, and return it to the office from which it was sent to you. Do you understand everything that you have just read? Do you have any questions pertaining to either the procedure or what is about to transpire in so far as this deposition is concerned? If so, please ask them now of me. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And this is called When in Doubt about whose turn it is to take out the trash, go ahead and take it out. All right, here we go. Ready? If we're not careful, it's easy to become resentful about all the responsibilities of daily living. Once, in a very low mood, I figured out that on an average day, I do over 1,000 different things. Of course, when I'm in a better mood, that number is significantly lower. As I think about it, it's astounding to me how easy it is for me to remember all the chores that I do, as well as all the other responsibilities that I take care of. But at the same time, it's easy for me to forget all the things that my wife does on a daily basis. How convenient. It's really difficult to become a contented person if you're keeping score of all you do. Keeping track only discourages you by cluttering your mind with who's doing what, who's doing more, and so forth. If you want to know the truth about it, this is the epitome of small stuff. It will bring you far more joy to your life to know that you have done your part and someone else in your family has one less thing to do than it will to worry and fret over whose turn it is to take out the trash. The strongest argument against this strategy is the concern that you'll be taken advantage of. This mistake is similar to believing It's important that you're right. Most of the time, it's not important that you're right, and neither is it important if you take the trash out a few more times than your spouse or housemate, making things like garbage less relevant in your life will undoubtedly free up more time and energy for truly important things. Okay, and that concludes our literary and jury charge for the 140 class.